Alright guys, let's talk about these Eeveelutions that are seemingly booming out of control pretty much, and it kind of really is making you wonder if these are the ultimate Pokemon investment. Like, are Eeveelutions just this kind of bulletproof investment that just seems like they can't drop? You know, it's kind of strange because Eevee and its evolutions have just always been fan favorites. Like, no matter how far you go back in Pokemon's history, everyone's just always had an obsession with Eevee evolutions, and that's probably because they're just such cool Pokemon, right? And Pokemon's actually done a really cool job with adding different Eevees within the franchise, and they've kind of had this like staggered release schedule with Eevees. Like, if you played like the original 151, like that was kind of my generation as a kid, you know, you had Jolteon, Vaporeon, and Flareon, and you obviously had Eevee, and it was this really cool thing that they could evolve in 3 different types. And then in Gen 2, they had Espeon and Umbreon, and then Gen 4, Leafeon and Glaceon, and finally then we got Sylveon. But it's kind of making you wonder, when are we going to get, you know, the Dragon form Eevee or the Rock type Eevee? You know, I'm really waiting for a new Eevee evolution, and hopefully in Generation 10, they finally give us another one, because I think the last one we got was in Gen 6, which was Sylveon, so it's been actually a really long time since we got another Eevee evolution. And I want to go through some of these Eevee evolution prices and just talk about what is happening with the market with these cards. They seem really stable. But, you know, guys, I'm in a really, really good mood. And the reason for that is because I couldn't believe my eyes when I was watching the Nintendo Direct, and bam, I couldn't believe it. Metroid Prime 4 got announced. Like, dude, if you understand what this means for people who are Metroid fans, it is such big news. Like, this game has so much lore, so I've just been in the best mood because of this news. So if you don't know what's happening with Metroid Prime, when the Nintendo Switch released all these years ago, they kind of teased Metroid Prime 4 as going to be one of the games for the Nintendo Switch. This was in 2017. And we all saw the announcement. We're like, whoa, 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 what's going to happen with Metroid Prime? And literally, man, it has been 7 years of waiting with not one slither of news other than that announcement 7 years ago. And they finally announced that it's coming out in 2025. So if you're a fan of Metroid, well done, dude. We made it. It's just massive news for us, guys. So I'm really excited for that game. And it's kind of crazy to think that you've had Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet all release after the original announcement of Metroid Prime 4 back in 2017. So it's really, really big news. But guys, let's go into these Eevee cards, and I want to really talk about where I think they're going to go and, you know, the stability of these cards. So the first one we're on is the Vaporeon V kind of Black Star promo card. Now, this card, I'm on the 3-month graph, but I want to just pull it up into the year. Now, it's funny with this card because this card was such a, it was a nothing card, man. Like, I remember looking at this, I could always buy this. In Australia, it says on TCG Play that it was as low as like 17 bucks. I could buy that for like even lower, I remember, in Australia than this last year. It was just such a cheap card. And to see the growth it's done is actually quite drastic. It's had a pretty significant price increase, so it's looking really good. I do like this card. I think the artwork's really cool. And of course, Vaporeon is an OG 151 Eevee evolution, so that obviously helps with the price point. Going on again to the VMAX variation, this card has obviously also had a pretty significant spike. You can see at the start of the year, it was always holding it around this $28 mark. And just now, recently, it's bumped up to pretty much a $50 card, close to doubling in value within a few months. And it's kind of all happened with this kind of boom. What's pretty cool is that this card is actually pretty easy to get. It was just a promo card that was accessible. So seeing it grow is pretty unique because promo cards don't really have the same growth trajectory as like cards that you get from booster boxes. So the fact that it's even gone up in value is pretty incredible. Moving on to the Flareon V. Another really good, so I'm on the 3-month graph, and this one's also had a weird dip because in April, and you can see right above, it peaked in May for 55, and now it's sitting at 44, and I do think this one is going to keep climbing up, to be honest. I think that's a slight little dip, but I just do think the fact that, you know, these Sword and Shield, that they release literally every single Eevee evolution, and its V and VMAX counterpart in alternate arts, you do have every single version, so I think just naturally these are going to climb. Moving on as well to the VMAX of the Flareon. This is actually one of my favorite Eeveelution cards. Even though it is a promo card, it's a Black Star promo, it is amazing in its own right. And you can see it was sitting at $13. And just slowly, man, check this out. It's climbed all the way to around 20, and now it kind of has peaked at around 40. It's interesting to me that this isn't more expensive than the Vaporeon. I think this is a much better artwork, and, you know, I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with this one. I think the colors and how much this one stands out, it's very prominent artwork. So I do think that this one can grow definitely much more in the future. Moving on to probably my favorite of the OG3 is the Jolteon VMAX. Now, this one has had some pretty crazy growth. You can see in the last 3 months, it was sitting at that 23. These OG ones were all sitting at that same price, and now it's gone up to around 45. We go into the year graph, and you can see it's had a pretty significant rise in a pretty short amount of time, which was kind of anticipated because everyone was thinking these were undervalued for such a long time. And I actually did make a video talking about the top 10 most undervalued Pokemon cards, and of course, these OG Eeveelutions made the list just because they're such fantastic cards. I really rate them. They're obviously not as desired as your alternate arts like in Evolving Skies and Fusion Strike and whatnot, but that's because, you know, they are gifted to you. But still, nonetheless, people that want to get every single Eeveelution will undoubtedly get these just to complete their master sets. A lot of people would have, you know, got the big versions, and then they're like, wait, I want the Vaporeon, I want the Jolteon, I want the Flareon. Now let's go into some of the more prominent priced Eeveelutions that have just gone absolutely wild. So the first one we are on Espeon V from Evolving Skies. Guys, what is this on the 6 months? Check this out, man. It was a $70 card only, you know, just January this year. And look what it's boomed to. It's 114. It hit its peak last month, and now it's dipped down to around 90. I don't think this dip is going to last long. I could be wrong. I think there's just a little bit of a calm after such a high peak, but we're going to see where this one goes. Obviously, the one that is kind of going absolutely wild, out of control, is the Espeon VMAX from Fusion Strike. I'm now on the 1 year graph. Guys, check this out. Now, this is just something that this and Glaceon VMAX from Chilling Reign are on the same par with just absurdity with how much they've gone up in value. If you can see here, guys, last year, consistently around the 130 to 140 USD mark for a raw copy. You can then see what happened here, and this is around the time, around February, March this year, is when Fusion Strike went out of print on the Pokemon Center, and of course, Fusion Strike then got its, you know, it just got all this fire with it underneath its belly, and then you can see what's happened here, guys. It's literally just done a straight up, and now it's selling for 342 USD per raw copy. That's a ridiculous price increase, guys. It's an expensive card to get in the first place. So if you had it for 140, you have literally more than doubled your money. So you've just made 200 bucks from this just sitting in your binder doing nothing. This is why Pokemon investing, and people talk about it in such a, you know, why people go so, like, everyone goes, oh, you can't invest in cards and all this. Guys, the reality is when you see things like this, obviously, if you bought at one price and you sell at another price, you've made a profit. Your bank account does not know the difference. If you made money from Pokemon cards, if you made money from going to work, if you made money from investing in the S&P 500, you know what? If you made money, it's all the same result. This is what we mean when we talk about Pokemon investing and why people get a little bit attracted to it as a sort of alternative form of investing. Because when you see things like this, it's pretty wild, you know. A lot of people do collect multiple copies of cards as well, guys. So you can see if you did have 2 or 3 of these, geez, you've just made $600 literally by doing nothing. Now, moving on, we are doing the Glaceon V Alternate Art from Evolving Skies. Another sensational card. And again, you can see the year price graph. It went from 55 all the way to 101. Now, another one to look out for is the VMAX. And this one has done also an incredible climb. Now, if you want to know something absolutely heartbreaking, your boy filming this video right now sold this card, and I'm not even joking. I sold this card right in March 19, 2024. That is correct. You cannot even make that up. I wish I could lie to you when I said I sold my card, but that is the exact point where I sold my PSA 9 Glaceon. So as you can see, I made a sensational decision because I have just sold it right before the peak where my money would have doubled. So a sensational choice from me. But again, this card has just done some crazy growth. You're probably wondering, hey Phil, why did you sell it? Well, because I only like collecting PSA 10 versions of cards. I sent them to grade, it came back a PSA 9. And obviously, I don't like PSA 9s that much. I'd rather actually have the raw copy of the card than the PSA 9. And I don't like cracking slabs because the risk is too high. The risk to reward ratio to me is just out of control. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to sell this card. And of course, I did not get any of the price that I would have got today. But guys, that is part of the game, right? That is what happens. Moving on to another amazing card, and it is the Sylveon V Alternate Art. And you can see, again, it was selling for $56, and now it is up to $95. Not such a crazy price increase as the others. Maybe percentagely it is, but then again, you know, it's much more impressive when a card that was already $200 goes to $400. When they just go up $50 when they were a $50 card, even though the percentage growth can be similar, it's still not as significant as these crazy $200, $300 price increases. Now, another one is the Sylveon VMAX Alternate Art. Now, guys, Another fun thing that you want to know is I actually sold this card also at March 19, 2024. And again, you can see that I made a horrible decision and it has just exploded in value since then. You can see that this one was sitting at 141 US and now it is sitting at 269. Gone out of control. I remember selling this card and I had this weird feeling when I was selling these two. I was like, something's weird about it, but I had to let it go because they were both came back PSA 9s and I don't really like collecting my PSA 9s. And of course, they have just blown up in value and just naturally people love their Eeveelutions. And we're moving on to Leafeon V Alternate Art. And you can see this one also has become a, sitting at around a $50 card and it is just about cracked the $100. It's $94 to $91 at the moment. I'm thinking this will become a $100 card very soon. Evolving Skies is literally just getting burnt out in terms of stock in the world. It is becoming less and less likely that people are ripping Evolving Skies. So what you've got in the market right now is what you have. If people want to keep collecting these V alternate Eeveelutions, they're going to keep going up. And of course, the Leafeon VMAX, which has had an incredible growth, 160. Now, what's interesting about this Leafeon VMAX, this was one of the only cards that didn't experience a crash during the alt art crash of last year. So when all alt art crashes dipped crazy in value, the Leafeon VMAX didn't budge. As you can see, guys, it literally said from 167 to 150, it just held its ground. And now it's done also a pretty incredible boom. And this, I think, is probably the best Eeveelution after Umbreon in terms of how it looks as a card. The Leafeon VMAX is an incredible artwork. Of course, it's kind of weird that all these are just packaged within Evolving Skies. And finally, guys, it is the kind of most iconic card of Sword and Shield and probably the most iconic modern card of Pokemon's history, the Umbreon VMAX. Now, the Umbreon VMAX, as I just said, it is the most iconic card of the Sword and Shield era. And you can see here, it was, it got to a low of 491. That was pretty much its market low. Very, very low card, and you can see the price increase has gone up to 958, and now it's kind of stable down at this 873. I think this is good. It's just finding its feet, this card. What's really crazy, guys, and even percentage growth, you might say, oh, they've grown to the same percentage, like a Vaporeon VMAX has grown the same percentage growth as the Umbreon. But it's a very different scenario, guys, because you've got to think when you're buying a card that's already $500 in value, for that to grow another $500 on top of that, that's a significant amount of money. You just made $500, including seller fees and stuff. You shave a little bit off the top. That is a pretty significant price increase, guys. And that's why when you invest in these really big heavy hitters, but then again, guys, I have to be honest with you, buying these really high priced cards, like in this kind of market, it's very similar to gambling. I do like buying expensive singles for collecting purposes. For investing, you need to be careful because if you think that there's going to be this crazy growth on these cards, when it comes to these cards, the only thing I can really imagine is you have to have the collector investor mindset. I don't mind buying cards at this price if it's purely for a collection. If I'm buying multiple of these cards for an investment purpose, that's not investing, guys. That's gambling. That's literally gambling. They're too highly priced. It's too much of a chaotic market. Can they grow double in price? Of course they can, but they can also drop in half. It is a very, very volatile market, singles, and that's why I don't see buying cards at this price as investing. If you buy one because you want one in your collection and you don't care about the price growth up or down, fine, go for it. If you're buying these because you think they're going to invest, so you buy 2 or 3 copies of these at this price, be very careful with that, guys. But guys, moving along, it just makes me think that these Eeveelutions are booming kind of crazy out of control, and they have made me think that they are a little bit of the ultimate investment. But guys, this is of course my opinion. What's really important is your opinion on these Eeveelutions. I want to know what you guys actually think and where you think the trajectory of these products is going to go. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Eeveelutions. I've loved them since I was a kid, and of course the community sentiment for that is the same. But what do you guys think? Because that is the most important. Now, obviously seeing these singles rise to such incredible levels, it does kind of beg the question, are singles the best form of Pokemon investing? Well, funnily enough, I actually do answer that question in great detail in this video on screen right here. I go into the 4 Pokemon investing pro tips and I look over the topic on versus singles versus sealed, and I discuss which one has historically performed better. If you're interested in that topic, click on that video on screen and I'll see you there, guys.